Hi, and welcome back to another Tech Talk. Today we'll be discussing tech for financial education. Let's get started.
Today we're going to talk about our money apps that will help you with budgeting and all the things that you need. Our goal today is education only. So a brief disclaimer, none of the products that I talk about today, I don't endorse them, I don't represent them, I don't even refer to them, okay? This is literally just information to help you make a wise decision while you are preparing for how to use these money tools in your financial planning and in your goal setting. The other part I want to remind you all is this information is educational only. So I'm not giving you money advice. I'm not giving you planning advice. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm providing information and education so that you can, again, make an informed decision. And then thirdly, the third disclaimer, none of the content that I present today is endorsed or supported or presented by DTS. This is my own content of my own educational understanding and research. So DTS is not liable for anything that I say in our presentation, okay? Alrighty, now we've got all of the disclaimers out of the way. Raise your hand if you use a money app currently. Okay, just like a handful of y'all. No worries. Our goal for today is really to just provide tools and understanding of what these money apps are, as well as the pros and the cons, because everything that we use comes with a bit of a risk. And so what I want to do is help you understand how these tools can work for you and how they can work against you. So we're going to cover 4 main areas today: budgeting, peer-to-peer, cash advance, and then financial education, okay? The first thing are budgeting apps. These are the apps that will connect to your bank, usually will download your transactions, and they present some sort of a visual example of how you're spending your money. We like to call this the cash flow, as money is coming in and flowing out. You give that representation there. It also allows you to categorize your spending and your income. So in the budgeting app, the emphasis here is on building your financial cash flow. How is the money coming in? How is the money going out? What are the major categories, spending, expenses, etc.? This is also the best place to develop a savings goal. Because you can have these categories, using a budgeting app allows you to say, here's what my big savings goal is, and here's how I want to track that I'm making progress toward that savings goal. Some popular budgeting apps that you all may know are your personal bank. How many of you know that your personal bank has a budgeting app? Raise your hand. Okay, maybe you did not know that. Oftentimes when I'm working with clients, about 60% of them have no idea that their primary bank has an actual budgeting feature built into it. Other common apps are You Need a Budget, which is commonly known as YNAB, Every Dollar, which is the Dave Ramsey program app that they use. Monarch, or Monarch Money as it used to be called, is a money budgeting app, and then Good Budget. All of these are apps that you can download from your app store, and you can use them to develop savings goals. The interesting thing about them, however, is they will all need to connect to your bank in order to get the real-time transactions. So what I want to pause before we get into the rest of it is I want to encourage you. And I said at the beginning that I don't recommend anything, but this is the number one recommendation that I will make. Start with your personal bank. Don't feel pressure to jump out to all these other tools and resources. All of the things that I'm going to talk to you about today can feel overwhelming. They can feel like it's a lot. But I want to encourage you to start with your personal bank because, one, you already have a financial relationship with them. So for whatever reason, you chose them, meaning you trust them. So don't feel like you have to give your financial transactions to another third-party app because it's easier to use. Challenge yourself to use the resources and tools that are already provided to you via your personal bank. A couple of key features about this programs that I mentioned is when you look at the You Need a Budget, that one teaches the intentionality of spending. So they will encourage you, every dollar needs to have a job is what their phrase is. And so they want you to put every dollar in a place. And it really kind of puts intentionality behind your spending. When you look at the Every Dollar app, it focuses on a zero-based budget. That means that everything comes in everything goes out, to include savings. So your budget at the end, your line should be $0. And then Monarch is more about advanced budgeting tools, and the goal there is to help you increase your net worth. So when you look at a budgeting tool, you want to figure out what is it that I am trying to accomplish, not what they want me to accomplish. Because if you're focused on, well, my friend uses YNAB, my friend uses Monarch, you'll get really overwhelmed and not know what the best system is for you. And then the last one on there, Good Budget, it's more of an electronic envelope system. If your parents or grandparents ever talk to you about budgeting, you've heard them talk about the envelope system. And so Good Budget is an electronic version of that that helps you put your money in envelopes so that you know how much you want to spend. And so as you're thinking about what are the goals that you want to accomplish, those are the key things to focus on when you're thinking about your budget. Here are some pros and cons to using budgeting apps. The pros are real-time visibility, right? Because you have connected them to your bank, every transaction that comes into your bank, it goes into this money app. You're able to then see real-time how your money is doing. It also can help with goal tracking. The idea of a budget is you're telling your money or you're planning for your money for the upcoming spending cycle. And I want us to focus on spending cycle because not every budget is first of the month to the 30th of the month, right? Some of our spending cycles are dependent upon our pay periods and things like that. So your budget says, here's what I want to spend in the upcoming pay cycle. And so when you use a budgeting app, it can allow you to set your goals. The other thing is it helps build awareness. How many of you, if you've used a budgeting app, at the end of the month, you're like, wait, I budgeted X number of dollars for food and groceries, and then the budgeting app shows you that your real-time expenditures were way over, right? And so using the budgeting app helps you to build awareness on where your money is actually going. So many of us make the mistake of saying, I got it in my head. I know how much I'm spending in these categories, and at the end of the month, we're like, where did all the money go? And so a lot of times, having that budgeting app builds that awareness. Some of the cons to keep aware of: subscription fees. A lot of the popular apps with a lot of additional features, they have a subscription fee, a monthly subscription fee. This is why I recommend using the one that comes with your personal bank, because more often there are no additional fees associated with that. The other concern is data sharing. We all know about internet hacks and all the things, and so you have to really decide, do I want to share my banking information with a third-party vendor? And then if you're not super tech savvy, there could be a lot involved with the setup process, connecting the banks, uploading the passwords, and all of those things. So those are some of the cons when using a budgeting app. Before we get further into the tech, I want to offer two low-tech solutions. The first solution is literally pen and paper. You can always just write it down. My grandfather was notorious for having a notebook, and he wrote down every transaction, income and expenses. So that's a super low tech. You don't have to share your information with anyone kind of a way. The second option is you can use an Excel spreadsheet or any other type of spreadsheet, right? You manually will enter the data. I often teach, side note, if you all are students here at DTS, you should have had part of your new student orientation. I taught a budgeting class where I talk about how to download your bank statement and then manually enter the transactions by the categories. That's another low-tech way that you can prepare your budget for your next spending cycle, and it won't cost you anything. You don't have to worry about your data or your privacy. So now we're going to transition to peer-to-peer apps. These are the most commonly apps used in America. So your peer-to-peer apps, this is a way that you share money with friends and in some cases strangers. We had a lawn guy who was new, and the first thing he said was, just Zelle me my payment. I was like, hold on, do I know you like that? And so these are very, very common apps that we use. The advantage is it allows for instant access, right? You can instantly transfer someone money. This is great when you're going out to dinner with friends or planning a trip together, and one person may put everything on their payment, and then you want to share the money. Over 80% of U.S. adults use a peer-to-peer app. I find my mom using a peer-to-peer app. She wants to Cash App or she wants to Zelle money to her grandchildren. So this is a very common. In fact, some of the research shows that peer-to-peer apps are used more frequently than budgeting apps. Wow, right? Think about that. So what are some of the things that we need to be aware of when we're talking about peer-to-peer apps? The most common peer-to-peer apps I have there on the screen, and you'll see Venmo. How many of you have a Venmo account? Cash App, if you have Cash App, Zelle, and even PayPal is still hanging in there as a peer-to-peer app. Y'all, I'm of that generation where I remember when PayPal was a big deal. Now it's like, oh, okay, you still use PayPal? So when you think about these apps, here are some of the key features that the apps provide. Venmo allows for social sharing. How many of you see that social feed in Venmo? I'm not a fan of it, but it's there. Cash App combines peer-to-peer along with investing and even some debit features. Zelle allows instant transfers between banks. And then PayPal is often used when doing business transactions. So as you're thinking about this and knowing that this is probably the most common used app, what are some of the pros and cons to using these peer-to-peer apps? Well, obviously the pros are the instant money transfer, easy to split the bill with each other, friends, family, direct connect to your bank. Right now, I don't have to worry about moving my money into another system. It's already connected. Here are some of the cons. Privacy issue. Y'all gonna hear me talk a lot about privacy because it's just something that we live with in this modern age, and I think more of us as consumers should be aware of it. There's the privacy concerns. There's also limited fraud protection. You may not know this, but your main bank, if your account gets hacked or your debit card gets stolen, they have fraud protection built in to protect you. But these third-party apps, Zelle, Venmo, Cash App, they don't have that for you. And so there's limited protection against fraud. And then it's very easy to overspend because unlike your banking and your budgeting apps, they show you how much money you have left in your account. These money transfer apps, they don't show you how much money is left in your account. There's just the assumption that you're transferring more and more money. So you could easily blow your budget by simply using these peer-to-peer transactional apps. And so you want to be mindful of, okay, who am I sending money to, making sure that it's a trusted contact. I see now that Zelle has a lot of security features built in. I think I have to press 17 buttons before I can transfer money to my daughters. And so you see now that they're paying a lot more attention. And so as consumers, we also want to make sure that we are paying attention and not using these apps carelessly. Here's a big one. Payday advance apps. How many of you have heard of a payday advance app, like a cash advance? Okay, I'm seeing some head nods saying no and a one or two say yes. So for those of you who are not aware, these cash advance or payday advance apps, they allow you to have access to money before you have real money in your account. So it's kind of like a loan, a short-term loan where they'll give you the money first with the assumption that when your payday comes, then you will pay them back. And so it's kind of like if I'm gonna loan you money and then just you pay me back, it's now all digital. The other thing is a lot of people can use them when money is tight, right? You're students, I already know this life. My husband graduated from DTS. I'm a professional student, that's what I call myself. And so I know that life, books coming in, and now you don't use paper books, but you gotta buy digital books, or you need to put money in your, drive money for gas in your car or housing. So sometimes you find yourself in a little bit of a bind, and you may feel like if I could just get a little $200 to hold me over. This is the space that these cash apps, these cash advance apps are moving in to try to help people with that short-term loan. Sometimes they will promise that they are interest-free. Sure, we'll give you $200 and you don't have any interest associated with it as long as you pay it back. Now, something my grandfather taught me, there is no such thing as free. And so you have to then say to yourself, what am I trading in exchange for this access? No one in America is giving free money without any strings attached. And so often we compromise and we give our email address, we give our phone number, we get on their third-party vendor list. They're exchanging something for that free use of their app, and especially that free use of their money. And so you want to be mindful of that. Couple of popular apps that you'll hear about or you may learn about in the future. Earn-In, it's really a big one. This one allows people to use up to $100 to $750 based on the number of hours they work. Some of them are also tied to your employer. So maybe you have an employer and they're like saying, oh, you can get an advance on your paycheck. They're using a third-party app to do that. Dave is another one that's very popular for cash advances. They try to swim in two lanes by being a cash advance and a budgeting app. Then there's Bridget, which allows for if you have overdraft protection on your account, their focus is borrow from us and you won't have an overdraft. And then there's also Chime. A lot of parents use Chime with their kiddos, but Chime can be used to also transfer money. This last one I added on here is not necessarily a cash advance, but it's super popular. It's called Klarna. Raise your hand if you've seen Klarna show up on every e-retailer uses Klarna. The model behind Klarna is buy now, pay later. And in theory, the concept is like, great, okay, I want to get this new pair of designer boots and I don't have the money in my bank account right now, so I'm going to use Klarna to pay for it, and then I will just pay them back. Now I'm going to switch to the pros and the cons. So I'm kind of whetting your appetite with Klarna, and then in the moment I'm going to tell you why Klarna has a big con that you need to be aware of. But before we go to the cons, here are the pros of these apps. They can help you avoid overdraft, right? Which is a big deal because your bank will charge you an overdraft fee and all the things, and then that can put you deeper into a hole. The other thing is these cash advance apps can be used in an emergency. I know what it's like to be a student and you're like, I just paid tuition and then my tire blew out. Where am I going to get the extra $200, right? And so a cash advance app may feel like a good choice if you don't have any other resources to get that. And it can also support short-term goals. Maybe you need something to pay for today so that you can have access to other things that you want to do going forward in the future. Here are the cons with these cash advance apps. One, the late fees. No one advertises right up at the beginning the exorbitant late fees associated with not paying back on time. The other thing is it creates dependency. If you're borrowing from money that you may earn in the future, now you're dependent because who knows what the future really holds. We live in a very volatile economy right now where unless you have a very salary job, everything else is up for grabs. And so if you're in the gig economy, if you're working part-time, you don't know what the future paycheck is gonna hold. And so you're borrowing from your future. And the big thing why I was talking about Klarna, buy now, pay later, unless you have a system to track it, right? Unless you are diligent with, I've given this money to this retailer, I'm giving this money to that retailer, I've given this money to that retailer, you could find yourself owing so much when the pay now comes due, and you're like, wait, I didn't budget for that. That's my number one complaint against buy now, pay later, is the consumer, the burden is now on the consumer to use all of these tools wisely. And then in conclusion of this section, it doesn't address the underlying budgetary need. So buying now, paying later, using a cash advance, you still have a budgeting situation that needs to be addressed. And if you don't get that under control, using these apps will not help you. It will ultimately hurt you. And then lastly, so now I've given you all this kind of big, scary picture, like, oh my gosh, buy now, pay later. I don't want anything to do with that. Let me offer with you a couple of tools that can be helpful in addition to using them to manage your money, but also to increase your financial education. So financial education apps are literally that, apps to provide education. Now, we live in a very heavy influencer society, and everyone is calling themselves a thing. This is why I'm very intentional to always put my credentials out there so that you all know that I'm not just someone who woke up this morning and decided to go to ChatGPT and create a presentation, right? I literally spend time studying and knowing what I'm talking about. But there are folks you'll see online who are like, oh yeah, I got out of debt and I can help you do the same thing. And they may very well know how to get themselves out of debt, but serving a client is a very different experience. And so when you are looking at financial education, be discerning. Just like you're discerning in your studies here at DTS, be discerning in how you're following individuals who are providing financial education. The other thing with financial education is you want to make sure it has an emphasis on learning and not bait and switch. What that means is a lot of products are on the market will say, we'll provide financial education. And then at the end, they want you to buy their product, or they want you to sign up, get on their mailing list, or they want to sell you something that's not in your best interest. So you want to be mindful that the financial education program focuses on education. And then you want to make sure that it's building financial literacy. You don't want to just have an app that says education and you're like, I feel like I'm getting the same email every month. And it's not really building that financial literacy. Here are some examples that I know of personally. This first one is called Goal Setter. Again, I am not recommending nor endorsing any products. However, this is a product that I've used with my family, and it's a gamified financial education. And it allows you as a parent to connect a savings account so that as your kiddos are playing these games and learning the financial education, the reward translates into real money. So Goal Setter is a super cool app. It can be used by adults as well as children. The other one is PowerPay. Say you're like me and you're like, wait a second, all of a sudden I've got all these credit card debt. I don't know what to do with it. PowerPay is a free resource, powerpay.org. It's a free resource that allows you to put in how much you owe, what your interest is, and it will calculate for you the payout amount. Now, there are lots of financial calculators that will say they will do that. PowerPay is actually owned by financial professionals and is from a nonprofit organization. And then finally, one of my favorite resources to use with clients is called spent.org. This one is 100% education. It's a gamified version of understanding what is it like to live paycheck to paycheck. Now, I don't have to tell y'all that, right? Because y'all understand as students, like paycheck to paycheck is the life we live. But sometimes when I'm working with clients, they're like, well, I can figure this out or I can do it. Well, with Spent, you simulate what would you do in an emergency. And so these apps are 100% based on education and information only. Pros and cons of education apps. Easy to access, increases your financial knowledge, and can be fun to use. Some of the pros are they're not always driving you to action, right? Information without action is just information. You can also still experience data sharing concerns, like I know with Goal Setter, you have to connect the account in order to have the savings reward. So there may still be a concern there. And sometimes education-only apps can be hard to find. So those are some of the cons associated with them. But again, if you're diligent, and we can have a conversation offline if you're interested, say you found a resource and you're like, hey, I want a second opinion, you all will have my contact information and you can always reach out to me for that as well.
Well, we hope that this information was helpful. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you at the next Tech Talk.